Hello and welcome to a new video. It's been a while. I wanted to share my recent storage of beetroots, how successful they've been, and I'd like to know what you think. Have you ever tried storing beetroots? See how crunchy and crispy it looks. This has been stored for about 3 months. You can see the little growth there, but it's all perfect. So let's start from the month of September. We harvested our beets that had been growing for nearly 5 months. If you want to grow beets, they're really easy to grow if you've never grown them before. I have these 2 beds dedicated to beetroots and onions. I alternate. So I start my beets like model sowing. I'm making deep holes and watering it because this was really dry this time of the year. We had a drought for like a month. I believe this was May. And this is our second batch of beets, so the first beets had gone in April. Now this is what module sowing is. You have a lot of them in one little pot and then you split it gently. They can tolerate this, although they are tubers, they can tolerate and handle a bit of splitting. But you see the sizes, they're quite tender, they're not overgrown. So once again, this is what I do. I sow about 3 seeds and you might have 4 or 5 plants or 6, depending. Sometimes the beetroot seeds split. So beetroots are one easy crop to grow if you've never grown them. Once again, when I've split them all up nicely and I've made my holes before doing this, just because I don't want them to be exposed to the dry weather for too long and not be in the soil. And remember, we already wet the soil, so we have a nice moist receptor for our roots. We don't want the roots to dry out. That's the whole essence, because it might take them longer to recover. If you have any issues with this, just try this. You have really reduced transplant shock with beets. Now these are the ones that were in a month earlier and look how lush they look, and the greens are actually edible at this time. Although they're high in oxalic acid, I generally don't eat them, but they've begun to form tubers or bulbs, which you can see there. So these beetroots, I sow them in different intervals so that I can have enough to harvest and to store. You can see the different stages of growth in both beds. Okay. Later. Now it's harvest day. We have different varieties, mostly the golden and the normal beetroots. The normal beetroots, should I call it normal or abnormal? We have the cylindrical, which are the long ones, and we have this normal round bulb ones. Just use a little clean brush and clean it. Now, you can harvest this anytime before your first frost, ideally for storage, but I wanted to do it before it starts getting really wet because then it's all soggy and then the beetroot in storage could spoil. So I'm just getting rid of any sand or moisture around it with my brush and also cutting up most of the stalk. So I use my hand and just snap it. I don't think you need a secateurs to do that. Just break it up as much as you can. You don't want to leave things that would rot. And when you're doing this, inspect your beets, okay? Make sure they're not too huge. This one was stored, but see how massive it is. It's a really big one. We had ginormous beets this year. I don't know, it didn't rain for long, but maybe we watered well. Let's say we watered well. Now we get home with all our harvest. Now we have to store it. We want to preserve this all through the winter, so that we don't have to buy and it doesn't go to waste. So pine shavings are really good. They're antibacterial. So these are pine shavings I bought like 1 bag a couple years ago. They do last a long time and you need to moisten them. So just tap water, just give them a good moist, so long as the water is clean and not contaminated. And then we don't want the water dripping though. We just want it moist and saturated enough to keep the beetroot moist but not soggy, and also we don't want them drying out in storage. That's the whole idea. The pine shavings help prevent that dryness. You saw the crispiness we had at the beginning. That's from 3 months in the pine shavings in my garage, nowhere else. They've just been in the garage, not in the fridge, and they look as good as the day they went in. And I have loads of beets that hopefully should last me till we have more beets in the garden. Fingers crossed. So when you're storing it, ensure the growing end, the end where you've cut up, is next to the wall of the container. Now, it doesn't matter. You could have them all over the place, but it just prevents it from growing. However, I had this grow. I had a few of them shoot out because they were not excluded from light. So it needs to be excluded from light. That's why we've put the black plastic to line these containers, because they're actually containers that have holes. These crates have got holes. I hope that makes sense. So next we just go ahead and we cover this layer, and you can put another layer over it. It's fine. Just ensure you have everything well and truly covered so that the beets are not touching each other. They're only in contact with the pine shavings, and then you put another layer on and you cover this up. This is nice and easy, guys. I found this the cheapest and the safest way to store my beets and to prevent them from being damaged in the frost. Last year I lost a whole bed of beetroots when we had a harsh frost. So beetroots can tolerate some frost, but not too much, so you don't want to run the risk. Now this one with the scabs I got rid of. I didn't leave it in here because just in case it could rot quickly. And so when you inspect, make sure there are no scabs, no holes and things like that, you know, so that your beetroots have the best chance of being kept in storage. Guys, are you enjoying this video? Have you found value? If you have never grown beetroots, we can do a grow along, but like I showed you, I didn't show the seeding part. The seeding part is just putting it in soil, covering it in water and leaving it. It will germinate once your temperature is no, you don't have a frost anymore. It germinates at fairly cool temperatures, to be honest. So it's one thing you can grow, and it's so beneficial to our health. I use a lot of beetroots for my juicing because of anemia. Someone with thalassemia like myself, I always have beetroots available so that I don't need to end up in the hospital with iron or blood transfusion. So that's why I do this. Yeah, it's been really good. Anyway, thank you for watching. Give this video a thumbs up if it's added value to you. And we're covering it with a card just to exclude light. Like I said, I found I needed to cover it with black plastic. It's in my garage next to my potatoes, and that's fine. Obviously the weather is cold now, but when we first did this in September, we had an Indian summer for a month. I think that's why this thing germinated, like you can see the gaps there. But after that, everything's been stable. Now my garage is my storage for things like fire cider and all my garden produce. Thank you and bye.